the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day, I've sat here and worried away. Through the years while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all of my heart. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you hears a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So, Catch calls the Onceler. He lets something fall. It's a truffula seed, the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest, protect it from axes that hack, and the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. The end. So a lot of the same issues are going on even today. Okay, so with your partner, answer these questions below. Take 2 or 3 minutes.
What are you going to say with the Lorax? It is an insightful.
Environmental problems around deforestation, contamination of water,
It explains a lot about things. Please.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the book? Amelia?
that relates to some of the environmental problems.
Okay, so definitely relates to some of the environmental problems we were talking about. Anything else? Any thoughts, reactions? Yeah?
It was
Creative? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, and it's like a kid's book, right? But I mean, even kids' book, I think, have a lot of morals and things that we can still learn from. Yeah, Sabrina?
You made a good point that industries keep taking the environment.
Right, so there's this conflict, right? All books have a conflict, all good books. That's what makes a good book a good book. There's a conflict, right? So industry kind of versus environment, right? So we all have heard about this before, right? However, so humans need things. We need resources. We go out into the world and we get resources. Have we heard of the word sustainability? Has anyone heard of the word sustainability? Yeah. Okay, so there are sustainable ways of doing things versus not sustainable ways of doing things. Was the Onceler, was he thinking about sustainability practices when he was cutting down truffula trees? No. What could have been a way that to infuse some sustainability into that that he could have done? What could he have done? Yeah, person. Okay, so as he's chopping, he's planting, right? Maybe having like a limit. Okay, so we'll chop here first, and then we'll chop here, and then we'll chop here, and then we'll replant here, and then we'll go to this side so that the animals could still have their habitats, right? So I think that's a great idea, planting as you're chopping. Instead of like chopping, and then just like leaving, right? And there's no way for the environment to kind of get itself back. There is, which we're going to talk about the last day of the unit. If he leaves that ecosystem the way it is, unfortunately there's all the contaminants, but if you just leave the environment by itself, eventually it will return. It just takes a long time. Okay, so what environmental problems were presented in the book? Jonathan?
Air pollution.
Air pollution. Mike?
Water pollution.
What else? Phoebe?
Deforestation.
Deforestation, which was kind of leading to all the rest of them. Yeah?
Like
Hunger. So we can call, like the animals leaving, we can call it two things. We can call it habitat destruction, and loss of biodiversity. These kind of go hand in hand. Because we're losing habitat, we're losing biodiversity in certain areas. What else? Air pollution, water pollution. Did anyone have anything else? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just call this like contamination as well. The fact that he was putting all this waste into the water, that really does happen. It used to happen all the time. Before the environmental movement, all factories just put all their waste. If it's not illegal, people used to just do it. Now it's illegal, right? So, but every factory used to just pump all of their waste into the water. People used to dig these huge pits and just bury their waste. And then the factory would close down, just like this one. Maybe 20 years later, when people forgot about it, they would start building houses on top of that. This happened. It was called the Love Canal. It was by Buffalo. They just dug a huge pit, put all their contaminants in it, covered it over, built a neighborhood and a school right around it. Earth starts to shift. All these contaminants just start pouring out of here, out of this pit. And obviously people were getting really sick, and it was just a huge problem. And that created the Superfund law, which we'll get into at some point. Okay, so did most of you have these on your list? Maybe yes, and maybe no, some of them. Okay, so what do you think Dr. Seuss means by the word unless at the end of the book? Jonathan, what do you think?
Unless the kid plants more.
Okay, so planting more. So what's that going to do?
Make more trees.
Make more trees. So what can we kind of like make this more broad? Like, so he plants a tree. Yeah, Dan?
Also, do something.
Okay, so we need to do something. We need to conserve. We need to do something. Do we need needs? Oh, another thing here. Another environmental problem that really this is about is the use of natural resources unsustainably. Right? The amount of stuff that we have is pretty unbelievable, and half the stuff we don't even really need. Like, I just think about like all those infomercials of stuff you never knew you never needed it, but then you get it. Like, oh my God, I need this so bad, right? You don't really need it, but that's kind of how like everything is about our lives. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not judging people who buy things. Like, I buy things all the time, you know, but it's just the awareness, being aware of everything you buy came from somewhere. It had to be built. There was a factory that was doing all these things. It had to be trucked to your store using gas, all these things. So it's just bringing awareness. Not saying you guys shouldn't buy things, but just bringing awareness to it. Okay, anything else about the word unless? Any thoughts? Yeah? Okay, solving a problem. Great. Good idea. How can we solve this problem? And solving problems doesn't mean you don't do it. It's just how do we do it better, right? How do we make things in a better way? How do we track down trees in a more sustainable way? How do we make houses in a more sustainable way, right? And what did you get out of the story? What was the moral of the story for you? Amaya?
Your actions affect everyone.
Okay, great.
It affected all the people.
So actions, great. Our actions affect everything. Good. Wait, somebody, Jonathan, can you hit that button?